Hello my fellow gamers, my name is Jason and welcome to Gamer Central. At this point in its life cycle, it's pretty obvious that Modern Warfare 2, like any other COD game, has its fair share of issues. Whether it's spawns, nade spam, or the lackluster seasonal content for 6v6 multiplayer, there's one issue that stands out above the rest: the perk system. I know that a bunch of people already made their own videos or have their own suggestions for how to change Modern Warfare 2's perk system, but I have an idea that I haven't seen anywhere else and I thought it would be fun to share with you guys. But before I dive in, I just want to say that all these changes I'm proposing are made with the assumption that almost nothing beyond the perks are being changed. It just makes things a lot easier to work with and talk about. So with that out of the way, my idea is to create a tiered Pick 6 system. It's a little different than some other ideas floating around, because first, there's 6 points that apply only to your perks, rather than having the previous Pick 10 or Pick 13 systems, which are for your entire class. Second, I reworked all the perks in the game to have 4 levels of strength that offer different amounts of functionality at the cost of more or less of your perk points. Lastly, the system will preserve the freedom and creativity that was brought by Gunsmith, and extend a similar amount of freedom and creativity to your perks as well. To start, let's take a look at the major changes the system would bring, starting with actually creating your perk loadout. Currently, Modern Warfare 2 has 3 perk categories: Base, Bonus, and Ultimate, each with their own selection of perks. This type of grouping has existed in nearly all previous COD games, with perks 1, 2, and 3. My first step would be to completely remove these perk categories and create a perk pool instead. With a perk pool instead of a traditional perk category, it would allow greater levels of customization and let players create perk setups that are specifically made for their target playstyles with fewer restrictions. After tearing down the current perk categories, I took all the perks in Modern Warfare 2 and created 4 levels of strength for each, called Tier 1, Tier 2, Tier 3, and Pro, which are worth 1, 2, 3, and 6 points respectively. With a little help from some viewers, I came up with new perk descriptions for each perk tier. Using the tracker perk as our example in this video, the best place to start is in the middle with Tier 2. Tier 2 perks cost 2 points and act as our baseline for perk balancing. I designed the Tier 2 perks to be the most balanced version of the perk and generally what most players would expect as if it were in any other Call of Duty game. My goal in doing this was to make sure each Tier 2 perk was an equally compelling choice when creating your perk loadout. To do this, I raised up some of the game's weaker perks and toned down some of the stronger ones to ensure that all Tier 2 perks were on relatively equal footing with each other. For example, the Tier 2 version of Tracker is fairly balanced as is, so I essentially left the perk as it is currently in Modern Warfare 2, where it allows you to see enemy footsteps and enemy death markers. Since the Tracker perk was already in a good state, I tried to balance the other perks to provide similar levels of benefits and strengths. Now that we have our baseline established, let's go backwards to Tier 1. Tier 1 perks are a nerfed version of the perk, which only costs 1 point due to the perk either losing a feature or having one of its attributes be weaker than its Tier 2 counterpart. Sticking with Tracker, if you choose the Tier 1 version, you can still see enemy footsteps, but they disappear faster. In addition to that, you'll lose the ability to see enemy death markers. Moving on to Tier 3, these perks cost 3 points and are stronger versions of the Tier 2 perks. They retain the attributes of the previous 2 tiers while having an additional benefit. I decided that the Tier 3 version of Tracker would gain the ability to hear enemies using dead silence. If this was actually implemented into the game, it would be the only available counter to that field upgrade. By attaching the Amplify perk from previous games to Tracker, I feel it matches the theme of the perk while providing it with a significant enough benefit to make it a potentially worthwhile perk choice. Lastly, we have the Pro version of the perks. If you've heard me talk about Pro perks on the One Boom's live streams, you'll know that I'm not the biggest fan of them, but my version of Pro perks is different to the ones we've seen in the past. I'm keeping the name, but completely changing what they actually are. All of the Pro perks will cost all 6 of your perk points, and are intended to be either gimmicky or ridiculously strong, with their only balancing factor being that it would be the only perk you can use on your class. You're essentially going all in on these perks, and they're intended to be just for fun and aren't really super practical for normal gameplay. What I decided for the Pro version of Tracker was to steal the concept of Jackal from Rainbow Six Siege. For those of you who are unfamiliar, Jackal has a limited use gadget that can scan footprints and give 3 location pings every 15 seconds. You might think that this is extremely overpowered and broken, especially for modes like S&D, but I disagree. Sure, the perk might be extremely powerful, but players would have to voluntarily give up other useful perks, such as EOD, Battle Hardened, and Ghosts. I believe that this trade-off is enough to keep these perks balanced. I really like this perk system because it removes the limitations that Infinity Ward brought back with Modern Warfare 2019, as well as the arbitrary timer-based system in Modern Warfare 2. It allows for more varied builds and playstyles to be available from the start of the match, which the current system doesn't allow. Just as an example, with my proposed perk system, you can have a maximum of 6 Tier 1 perks on your class, 3 Tier 2 perks, 2 Tier 3 perks, or any mix of the 3 categories. Especially with the Pro perks, Players have the option to adopt new ways of playing the game that follow a more gimmicky and fun playstyle if they choose to. Also, with there being 20 selectable perks currently in Modern Warfare 2, my idea would bring that number all the way up to 80. To get an idea of how much variety the system would add to the game, if you only used the 1 Tier 1 perks, there are over 27 million available perk combinations. This number would only get higher if you include the Tier 2 perks and Tier 3 perks, as well as combinations from all 3 categories. If you want to see the full list of the reworked perks and the ideas that I came up with, here's the Excel sheet that I used. Some of my favorites that we came up with were Fast Hands, Focus, High Alert, and Survivor. Obviously they may not be the most thought through or balanced ideas, but you can pause the video if you want to take a closer look. But anyways, what do you think of the tiered pick 6 system? This is something I've thought about since the day Modern Warfare 2 launched, and it feels good to finally make a video on it. Also, if you like this style of video, let me know since it's my first time doing something like this. With that, thank you guys for watching, and I hope to see you guys in the next video.